The desert sun hung low over the cracked asphalt of Route 17, casting long shadows that stretched like fingers across the dusty forecourt of Eldridge Auto Repair. Ethan Hale wiped grease from his calloused hands on a rag that had seen better days. The metallic tang of oil mixing with the faint scent of wild sage carried on the wind. At 52, Ethan was a fixture in this forgotten stretch of Nevada, his shop a beacon for travelers who broke down under the relentless sky. But today, as the horizon bled orange, something felt off. A low rumble in the distance, not the usual semi-truck growl, but deeper, more primal. Inside the shop, the air was thick with the hum of fluorescent lights flickering overhead. Ethan's daughter Lila sat on a stool by the workbench, her small hands sketching absent-mindedly on a notepad. She was 12, with eyes like her mother's, sharp and curious, untouched by the world's rough edges. Or so Ethan told himself. "Dad, you think we'll make it to the county fair this year?" she asked, her voice cutting through the clatter of tools. Ethan forced a smile, but his mind was elsewhere. Bills piled up like rusted parts in the backlot. The mortgage on the shop, medical debts from Lila's last flare-up of that undiagnosed fever that had kept her home for weeks. The bank had sent another notice that morning. Foreclosure loomed, a shadow darker than any desert night. He'd built this place from nothing after the war, after losing Sarah in that car wreck on the same damn road. Promises had kept him going, to her, to Lila, to the code he lived by. Help those who can't help themselves. That's what he'd whispered to the empty garage nights when doubt crept in. And for years, he'd done just that. Bikers mostly, rough souls on two-wheeled beasts rolling in with engines coughing like old men. The iron vipers, the desert ghosts, lone wolves with patches faded from sun and storm. They came from all over, drawn by word of mouth. Ethan fixed their rides for free, or close to it. A tune-up here, a rebuilt carburetor there. No questions asked. "You keep the roads safe," he'd say, waving off their protests. "That's payment enough." But gratitude was a fleeting thing in a cynical world. Now, as the sun dipped lower, Ethan's world cracked open. The phone rang, shrill against the quiet. He picked it up, heart sinking at the voice on the other end. "Bank manager, all clip deficiency. Mr. Hale, this is your final notice. The property goes to auction in 30 days unless the full amount is cleared." Lila looked up, her sketch forgotten, and Ethan hung up without a word. He knelt beside her, ruffling her hair. "Everything's going to be fine, kiddo. Dad's got this." But the lie tasted like ash. That's when the rumble grew louder, vibrating through the concrete floor like an earthquake's prelude. Ethan stepped outside, shielding his eyes against the glare. A convoy materialized from the haze. 50, maybe 60 motorcycles, a thunderous herd of chrome and leather slicing through the dusk. Harleys mostly, their exhausts belching a symphony of roars that drowned out the wind. At the lead was a figure Ethan recognized, Marcus Rook Landry, broad-shouldered and scarred, his graying beard framing a face etched with the miles. Behind him, the pack fanned out, engines idling like predators at rest. Rook killed his bike and dismounted, boots crunching gravel. The others followed, a wall of denim and ink. But there was no menace in their approach, only purpose. Ethan felt a chill despite the heat. "Rook, what the hell's this?" he called, voice steady but wary. The big man clasped Ethan's forearm in a grip like iron. "Heard about your trouble, Ethan. Word travels fast on the blacktop." His eyes, sharp as a hawk's, flicked to Lila peeking from the doorway. "We owe you, brother. More than you know." Ethan's mind reeled. It had been years since he'd last seen Rook's crew, that wild bunch who'd roared in after a border run gone south. Their bikes were shot, tires shredded, frames bent from a chase with federals who'd bent the rules themselves. Ethan had worked through the night, no charge, patching them up while they shared stories of lost brothers and unbreakable oaths. "Family ain't blood," Rook had said then, clapping Ethan's back. It's the ones who stand when the road gets rough. A promise, unspoken but sealed in the glow of welding torches. Now, as the bikers formed a semicircle around the shop, their presence felt like a shield against the encroaching dark. Lila slipped out, wide-eyed, and one rider, a woman with a braid-like rope and a patch-reading ghost, knelt to her level. "Hey, little rider, ever been on a bike?" Lila's fear melted into a tentative grin. Rook pulled Ethan aside, voice low. "We're not just here to talk. That debt the bank's squeezing you for, it's handled, but it's bigger than that. There's a storm coming, corruption in the county, officials turning a blind eye to folks like you getting pushed out. We ride for justice, Ethan, the kind that doesn't make the papers. You fixed us when no one else would. Now we fix this for you." Ethan's throat tightened. The weight of years, losses, secrets buried under layers of grease, lifted just a fraction. He'd carried Sarah's ring on a chain around his neck, a reminder of vows unkept by fate. But this was redemption's first whisper, a convoy of chosen kin answering a call he hadn't even made. As the sun vanished, painting the sky in fire, the engines revved again, a vow in thunder. Lila's laughter rang out as she climbed onto a bike for her first ride around the lot, the wind tousling her hair. In that moment, Ethan knew. The favor wasn't just returned, it was multiplied, a legacy forged in loyalty's fire. But shadows lingered, whispers of the corruption Rook mentioned, tendrils reaching from city halls to dusty roads. What price would honor demand? The night air cooled, carrying the scent of exhaust and possibility. Ethan watched his daughter, the biker's silhouettes merging with the stars. For the first time in years, the road ahead didn't feel so endless. The stars wheeled overhead like scattered diamonds on black velvet, the desert night wrapping Eldridge Auto Repair in a hush broken only by the occasional pop of cooling engines. Ethan Hale stood in the forecourt, arms crossed, watching as the bikers dispersed into small groups, some tending to their machines with quiet efficiency, others sharing smokes and low murmurs under the shop's sodium lights. Lila, her cheeks flushed from the thrill of that short ride, clung to the arm of the braided woman, whose name Ethan caught as Nora Ghost Riley. The girl's laughter echoed faintly, a sound Ethan hadn't heard in too long, like rain after drought. Rook lingered nearby, his massive frame silhouetted against the glow from the open garage door. He pulled a flask from his vest and offered it to Ethan, the silver glint catching the light. "Scotch, aged like the regrets we carry," Rook said, his voice a gravelly rumble, honed by years of wind-whipped highways. Ethan took a swig, the burn steadying him. It tasted of oak and forgotten roads, a far cry from the cheap coffee that fueled his days. "You mentioned corruption," Ethan said finally, handing back the flask. "What's this storm you're talking about?" "I fix engines, Rook. I don't chase shadows." Rook's eyes narrowed, scanning the horizon, as if expecting trouble to materialize from the dark. "It's not just shadows, brother. Start small, folks like you getting squeezed by banks that answer to higher powers. But dig deeper, and it's the county brass, Sheriff Harlan's office, the zoning board. They've been turning a blind eye to developers who want this stretch of Route 17 for some resort sprawl. Big money from out east, promising jobs, but delivering eviction notices. Your shop? Just the first domino." Ethan's jaw tightened, the pieces clicking like a stubborn piston. He'd heard rumors, whispers from other shop owners closing up, land sales that smelled off, but he'd buried his head, focused on Lila's fevers and the endless grind. Sarah's accident had taught him caution. The road took what it wanted, and fighting it only left more scars. "And you lot, how do you fit into this?" Rook chuckled, a sound like distant thunder. "We ride the edges, Ethan. Seen enough crooked badges to know when the system's rusted through. Last year, one of our own, a kid named Tyler Sparks Jennings, got pinched on a trumped-up charge after helping a family evade those same developers. They roughed him up, left signs of aggression that no report ever saw. We got him out, but it cost. Oaths like that don't fade. You patched our rides when the law was hunting us. Now we patch your world. Inside the shop, the fluorescent hum picked up as bikers filtered in, tools in hand. Nora knelt by Lila, showing her how to check oil levels on a gleaming Harley, her voice soft and patient. "See, little one, it's like breathing for these beasts. Keep 'em steady, and they'll carry you far." Lila nodded, absorbing it all with wide-eyed wonder, her sketchpad forgotten on the workbench. Ethan watched from the doorway, a warmth spreading in his chest that warred with the knot of fear. These were outsiders, wanderers bound by patches and promises, yet here they were, weaving into his fragile life like threads in a frayed tapestry. As the night deepened, Rook gathered a few of the core riders around a makeshift fire pit, old tires burning clean in a metal drum, flames dancing shadows across tattooed arms. Ethan joined them, the heat chasing the chill. Stories flowed like the Scotch, tales of brothers lost to the bottle or the badge, of midnight runs to deliver aid after floods or fires. One rider, a wiry veteran named Lucas Forge Bennett, spoke of a promise made in a foxhole overseas. "War teaches you family ain't born," he said, staring into the fire. "It's forged. Ethan, you gave us that when you fixed my rig after I came back broken. No charge, no judgment. That's the code." Ethan felt the weight of their gazes, a circle of loyalty closing around him. He'd always seen the bikers as fleeting, souls passing through, leaving grease stains and gratitude. But now, in the firelight, he glimpsed the depth, scars from battles unspoken, oaths etched in ink and blood. Sarah's ring pressed against his skin under his shirt, a reminder of his own unyielding vow, to protect Lila, to build something lasting from the ruins. Dawn crept in slow, painting the sky in bruised purples and golds. The convoy stirred, engines coughing to life with a symphony of roars that shook the dust from the rafters. Rook clapped Ethan on the shoulder. "We ride out at first light to scout the county offices. Got a contact inside, old ally who owes us. But we need your eyes on this end. Watch for tails. Keep Lila safe. This favor, it's just the spark." Ethan nodded, the decision settling like gravel under tires. He couldn't turn back now. The pull of honor was stronger than fear. As the bikers mounted up, Lila ran to him, hugging tight. "Dad, they're like guardians, from stories." He knelt, brushing dirt from her cheek. "Yeah, kiddo, and we're part of it now." The lead bikes peeled out, a thunderous wave rolling toward the rising sun, exhaust trails lingering like promises in the air. Ethan stood with Lila, the shop behind them a fortress reborn. But as the dust settled, a lone pickup truck crested the horizon, unmarked, idling too long at the roadside. Suspicion prickled Ethan's skin. The storm Rook warned of wasn't waiting. It was already circling. And now I invite you to leave in the comments where you're watching from and the exact hour you heard this story. We wish to know how far these northern confessions travel and at what moments they reach you. The pickup truck idled at the edge of the lot like a predator sizing up its territory, its engine a low growl that cut through the fading roar of the departing convoy. Ethan Hale's hand instinctively went to the small of his back, where an old wrench hung from his belt loop, more habit than weapon. But in moments like this, it felt like enough. Lila tugged at his sleeve, her earlier excitement dimmed by the stranger's presence. "Dad, who's that?" she whispered, her voice small against the vast morning quiet. Ethan shielded her with his body, eyes locked on the truck's tinted windows. No plates he could make out from this distance. Just the glint of sun off black paint that screamed out of place in this sun-bleached nowhere. The desert wind picked up, whipping dust devils across the asphalt, carrying the faint, acrid scent of overheated brakes. He'd seen rigs like this before, unmarked, anonymous, the kind that showed up when debts turned personal. The bank's notice had been polite on paper, but men like Harlan's deputies weren't known for courtesy. The driver's door creaked open, and a figure stepped out. Mid-40s, suit rumpled like it had been slept in, tie askew over a shirt stained with coffee. He wasn't local, too soft around the edges, city polish clashing with the grit of Route 17. "Mr. Hale?" the man called, voice carrying a forced amiability that didn't reach his eyes. He approached slowly, hands visible, but Ethan noted the bulge under his jacket, the subtle shift of weight, like someone used to drawing fast. "Yeah," Ethan replied, stepping forward just enough to keep Lila behind him. "Shop's open for business. What can I do you for?" The man stopped a few paces away, glancing at the dispersing dust clouds from the biker's exit. "Name's Victor Klein. Represent the Eldridge Development Group. Heard you might be open to discussions about your property." His smile was thin, rehearsed, the kind that hid ledgers full of fine print. "The auction's coming up, but we've got an offer. Cash, quick close. Better than fighting the inevitable." Ethan's blood simmered, the pieces Rook had laid out snapping into sharper focus. Developers. County brass. Same web, different spiders. Sarah's accident flashed in his mind. That rainy night on this very road. Tires hydroplaning on oil slicks from some half-paved construction rush. Promises broken by greed. Lives upended. He wouldn't let it touch Lila. "Not interested," he said flatly, voice steady as a revving idol. "Tell your bosses the shop stays." Klein's facade cracked, eyes hardening. "You sure? We've got friends in high places. Sheriff Harlan sends his regards. Wouldn't want complications, inspections, liens, that sort of thing." He nodded toward the shop where tools still lay scattered from the biker's impromptu maintenance. Or maybe trouble with unsavory company. The threat hung in the air, thick as exhaust fumes. Lila peeked out, her small fist clenched in Ethan's shirt. Ethan felt the ring around his neck warm against his skin, a talisman of vows he'd sworn to uphold. "Get off my land," he said, low and final, "before I call in some unsavory company of my own." Klein lingered a beat too long, then back toward the truck, chuckling without humor. "Your funeral, Hale. Clock's ticking." The engine roared to life, tires spitting gravel as it peeled away, vanishing into the heat haze toward town. Ethan exhaled, pulling Lila close. Her heart hammered against his side, a reminder of stakes higher than any foreclosure. Back inside, the shop felt smaller, the fluorescent lights buzzing like angry hornets. Ethan busied himself with a half-dismantled carburetor, but his mind raced. Rook's words echoed. The storm was circling. He needed to reach out, but the landline was spotty and his cell barely caught signal out here. Lila climbed onto her stool, sketching again. This time not flowers or bikes, but a fierce guardian angel with wings of chrome. "They'll come back, right, Dad? Like knights?" Ethan managed a nod, ruffling her hair. "Yeah, kiddo, they will." But doubt gnawed at him. These bikers were wanderers, bound by oaths that might not weather a real fight. He'd fixed their rides out of honor, not expectation. What if this favor demanded more than engines, blood maybe, or the kind of sacrifice that left scars deeper than grease burns? Hours blurred under the relentless sun, the shop's fans stirring hot air like a futile breath. Customers trickled in, a stranded family with an overheating radiator, an old-timer needing wipers. But Ethan's focus splintered. Every shadow on the horizon pulled his gaze. Every phone ring set his jaw. By midday, sweat soaked his shirt, the metallic bite of tools mingling with the sage-scented breeze through the open bay. Then the rumble returned, not the full convoy, but a trio of bikes slicing through the shimmer. Rook led, flanked by Nora and Lucas, their faces grim under dust masks. They killed the engines, the sudden silence amplifying the tension. "Saw the tail from the ridge," Rook said, dismounting with purposeful grace. "Klein's a fixer for the developers, low level but connected. He rattled you?" Ethan wiped his brow, glancing at Lila, who watched from the office window. "Enough. Mentioned Harlan. Said complications if I don't sell." Nora knelt by her bike, checking a chain with practiced hands, but her eyes were on Ethan, assessing, not pitying. "We've dealt with his type. Last run they tried the same on a widow's farm up north. We exposed their paper trail. Fake appraisals, bribed clerks. Truth's our weapon, Ethan, not fists." Lucas nodded, his wiry frame leaning against the workbench. "Remember Sparks? That kid I mentioned. Klein's crew left him with signs of a rough interrogation after he wouldn't back down. We rode to the station not with guns, but with witnesses. Folks you'd helped, Ethan. Mechanics, truckers. Your word carried weight, turned the tide." Ethan absorbed it, the circle of loyalty tightening. These weren't just riders. They were echoes of his own buried oaths, the ones forged in foxholes and hospital waits, promising Sarah he'd build a life unbowed by loss. "What now?" he asked, voice rough. Rook's gaze met his, steady as desert rock. "We gather proof. My contact in the county clerk's office, old war buddy, owes me from Nam, dug up docs. Zoning changes rushed through. Harlan's signature all over. But we need your shop's records. Invoices, waivers from those free fixes. Shows the heart of this place, not just the books. Proves it's community, not collateral." Ethan hesitated, then pulled a ledger from under the counter, its pages yellowed like old promises. "Take what you need, but Lila stays out of it." "Deal," Rook said, clasping his forearm. As they pored over the entries, names of riders, dates of midnight repairs, the air thickened with shared history. Nora shared a quiet word with Lila, teaching her to polish chrome until it gleamed like hope. "Shine comes from the inside out," she said, "just like people." By afternoon's slant, the trio mounted up again, ledger tucked in Rook's saddlebag. "Hold the fort," Rook called over the revving engines. "Sunset, we ride back with more. This favor, it's building to something big." Ethan watched them go, the dust settling like a veil. The pickup's visit had cracked his resolve, but the bikers mended it, thread by thread. Yet as the sun dipped, casting long shadows over the forecourt, a new sound pierced the quiet. Sirens, distant but closing. Harlan's doing. Or something worse. The road's whispers grew louder, demanding Ethan face the corruption head-on. Honor wasn't free. It roared like thunder, pulling him into the fray. The sirens wailed like banshees across the baking asphalt, slicing through the afternoon haze that clung to Route 17 like a fever dream. Ethan Hale froze in the shop's open bay, his grease-streaked hands gripping the edge of the workbench, the metallic tang of oil sharp in his nostrils. Lila's sketchpad slipped from her fingers, pages fluttering to the concrete floor like startled birds. The sound grew closer, a piercing crescendo that turned the desert's vast silence into a cage. Ethan's pulse thrummed in his ears, matching the rhythm of distant rotors, county cruisers, no doubt their lights already flickering on the horizon like false stars. "Get inside, kiddo," he murmured, scooping Lila up and carrying her to the office, the door's hinges creaking in protest. He locked it behind them, the click echoing too loudly in the small space, cluttered with faded invoices and a single photo of Sarah, her smile frozen in time. Lila's eyes, wide with that sharp curiosity now edged in fear, searched his face. "Dad, is it the bad men, like the truck guy?" Ethan knelt, forcing calm into his voice, though his mind raced like an unbalanced engine. "Just noise, Lila. Stay low, away from the windows." He grabbed the old cordless phone from the desk, its battery icon blinking red. barely enough juice to reach Rook. As he punched in the number, the sirens peaked. 2 squad cars screeching into the lot, gravel spraying like shrapnel. Doors slammed, boots thudded, and Sheriff Harlan's voice boomed through a bullhorn. "Hale! Step out with hands visible. We got reports of a disturbance, armed gathering on private property." Armed gathering, the word twisted in Ethan's gut, a lie spun from Klein's visit, no doubt. He thought of Rook's ledger, now riding toward town, with proof that could unravel the web. Zoning scams, bribed signatures, the slow bleed of honest folk like him. The biker's favor wasn't just engines anymore. It was a shield against this very storm. Through the office blinds, Ethan glimpsed the cruisers blocking the entrance, their lights pulsing red and blue across the shop's faded sign. Harlan himself strode forward, a bear of a man in starched khaki, his mustache twitching like a live wire. Flanking him were 2 deputies, hands hovering near holsters, faces set in practiced menace. Ethan cracked the door, phone pressed to his ear, the line crackling with static. "Rook, it's Hale. Sirens. Harlan's here. Says disturbance. You close?" Static hissed back, then Rook's gravelly tone. 2 miles out. Stall 'em, brother. We're coming hot." The call dropped, signal lost to the desert's whims. Ethan stepped into the light, hands raised, the sun glaring off the cruiser's hoods like molten judgment. "Sheriff, what's this about? Shop's quiet. Had some customers, that's all." Harlan's eyes, cold as chipped flint, raked over him. Then the empty lot where tire tracks from the bikes still scarred the dust. "Customers? Word is you had a gang infestation. Iron vipers stirring trouble. We don't tolerate that out here, Hale. Not with your, financials in the red." The implication hung heavy, laced with the stink of corruption Rook had warned about. Ethan caught the faint scent of cheap cologne wafting from Harlan, mingling with the ever-present sage on the wind, a reminder that power here reeked of compromise. Lila whimpered from inside, and Ethan's resolve hardened, Sarah's ring a warm weight against his chest. He'd promised her a legacy of integrity, not surrender. "No trouble here, Harlan. Folks came to help, not harm. If you've got a warrant, show it. Otherwise you're trespassing." The sheriff's face darkened, a vein pulsing in his temple. He gestured to a deputy who advanced with cuffs glinting in the light. "Interfering with an investigation. That'll do for now." The air thickened, tension coiling like a spring-loaded chain. Ethan backed toward the office, mind flashing to the wrench on his belt, useless against badges, but a symbol of the work that had built this place. The biker's stories echoed in his head, Sparks' rough handling, the widow's farm saved by truth, not force. Justice wasn't in the fight, it was in the stand. "You want me? Fine, but the girl's off limits. She's done nothing." Harlan smirked, but before the deputy could close the gap, the horizon erupted, a low thunder building from the east, deeper than sirens, primal as a heartbeat. Engines. Dozens of them, the convoy returning not in scouts but full force. Chrome beasts crested the rise like a silver tide. Rook led the charge, Nora and Lucas at his sides, the pack fanning out in a disciplined roar that drowned the cruiser's wails. They didn't charge, they encircled, bikes idling in a wall of vibrating steel, riders dismounting with purposeful calm, leather creaking, boots planting firm. Harlan whirled, hand dropping to his sidearm, but Rook's voice cut through, amplified by the bullhorn he'd commandeered from a saddlebag. "Easy, Sheriff. We're here peaceful. Got something for you? Records? Witnesses? Your zoning games? Over." The bikers parted, and a figure emerged from the rear. An older man in a rumpled clerk's vest, clutching a thick folder, his face pale but determined. Ethan's contact? No. Rook's war buddy, Samuel Doc Whitaker, eyes meeting Ethan's with a nod of shared history. The sheriff's bluster faltered, deputies exchanging uneasy glances as the circle tightened. Nora stepped forward, her braids swaying like a pendulum, holding Lila's sketch, the chrome angel, aloft. This place is community, Harlan. Folks like Ethan fixed us when the road broke us. You break it now, that's on you. Lila peeked out, clutching Ethan's leg. Her fear easing at the sight of her guardians returned. Rook approached Harlan, folder extended like an olive branch forged in fire. Doc's here. Rushed permits, your signature on payoffs. We ride for the forgotten, Sheriff. Ethan forgot nothing for us. Time to square it. The air hummed with exhaust and anticipation, the desert wind carrying whispers of oaths unbroken. Harlan snatched the folder, flipping pages with trembling hands, the color draining from his face. Lies exposed in black and white, no graphic reckonings, just the quiet power of truth piercing the veil. Ethan watched, chest tight with a mix of relief and the sharp edge of what came next. The favor returned wasn't a check or a bailout. It was this, a family chosen, roaring back to honor a debt years old. Lila's hand slipped into his, small but steady. As the sun arced lower, casting golden halos on the bikes, the sirens fell silent, replaced by the low murmur of engines at rest. Harlan backed toward his cruiser, muttering about reviewing this. But the shift was palpable, the storm breaking, Justice's first light piercing through. Yet shadows lingered in the sheriff's retreating glare, a promise of retaliation unspoken. Ethan pulled Lila close, the scent of her hair, faint shampoo amid the grease, grounding him. The bikers gathered, voices weaving tales of roads ahead, their loyalty a forge remaking his world. Redemption wasn't a destination, it was this moment, engines cooling under a sky vast with possibility. But as dusk crept in, a single unanswered question burned. How deep did the corruption run, and what sacrifice would seal the vow? If this story's gripping you, hit that like button below. It helps spread these tales of loyalty and honor to more roads out there. The desert twilight bled into night, the sky a canvas of bruised indigo streaked with fading gold, as the bikers' engines idled down to a contented purr around Eldridge Auto Repair. Ethan Hale stood in the forecourt, Lila's hand still warm in his. The girl's earlier fear now softened by the encircling presence of these leather-clad guardians. The air hung heavy with the scent of cooling metal and sagebrush, undercut by the faint, oily residue from the cruiser's hasty retreat. Sheriff Harlan's squad cars had peeled out minutes ago, taillights vanishing into the gathering dark like embers snuffed by wind, but the tension lingered, a taut wire humming beneath the calm. Rook dismounted fully now, his boots thudding against the gravel with the weight of unspoken battles. He handed the bullhorn back to a younger rider, then turned to Ethan, his scarred face illuminated by the flickering glow of the fire pit they'd reignited earlier. "That folder hit him like a gut punch, brother," Rook said, voice low to keep Lila from overhearing. Doc Whitaker pulled strings, old oaths from the war paid off. Those docs show the zoning flips, payoffs traced to Klein's group. Harlan's got no play left but to squirm. Ethan nodded, but his gaze drifted to the horizon where the sheriff had fled. Sarah's ring pressed against his collarbone, a steady reminder of promises tested by fire. He'd lost her to this very road's indifference once. He wouldn't lose the shop, their shared dream, to greed's slow poison. "He didn't look like a man done squirming," Ethan replied, the words tasting of dust. "Mentioned my financials like he owned them. What's next? They come back with warrants, real ones this time." Nora approached, her braids swinging like a metronome of resolve. Carrying a thermos of strong coffee that steamed in the cooling air, she poured a cup for Ethan, the rich, bitter aroma cutting through the exhaust haze. "We've seen his kind before," she said, her voice steady as a well-tuned idol. "Bluster first, then desperation. Sparks run last year. Harlan tried the same. Planted evidence after that rough handling left the kid reeling. We didn't fight fire with fire, we lit the truth brighter. Rode to the state oversight board with every receipt, every testimony, turned the spotlight." Lucas joined them, wiping his hands on a rag stained with the day's grease, his wiry frame casting a long shadow in the firelight. He glanced at Lila, who sat cross-legged nearby, polishing a biker's helmet with childlike focus, the chrome catching sparks like captured stars. "Kid's got spirit," Lucas murmured. "Reminds me of my niece before the roads took her uncle. Ethan, your free fixes? They weren't just parts. For me, after coming back from overseas, it was a hand up when the VA left me twisting. That ledger you gave us, it's gold. Names, dates, stories, proves this shop's the heart of the stretch, not some developer's blank slate." The group fell into a loose circle around the fire, flames crackling softly, casting dancing patterns on tattooed arms and weathered faces. More riders filtered in from the perimeter, where they'd parked in a protective arc, sharing quiet nods with Ethan. Stories unfurled like smoke, a midnight tow for a stranded veteran, engines rebuilt under starlit skies. A promise to a fallen brother's widow, bikes ridden in vigil until dawn. Ethan's chest tightened with the weight of it all, these wanderers, bound not by blood but by the code he'd lived quietly for years. Help without tally, stand without surrender. Sarah would have seen the poetry in it, the quiet honor amid the roar. As the night deepened, the wind whispered through the sage, carrying a chill that seeped into bones. Lila yawned, her eyelids heavy, and Ethan carried her inside to the small cot in the office, tucking a blanket around her small form. She murmured something about chrome angels watching over them, her breath evening out in sleep. Back outside, the conversation turned sharper. Doc Whitaker, the clerk with his rumpled vest and wire-rimmed glasses, pulled a crumpled map from his pocket, spreading it on the workbench under the shop's harsh lights. "Harlan's not alone," he said, tracing lines with a calloused finger. "Klein's group funnels cash through shell outfits, Eldridge Progress Fund, and they call it, but the real string pullers, City Council up in Reno, old money eyeing this route for luxury strips. Your wife's accident site. Part of the first land grab they botched years back, sloppy paving, no oversight." Ethan's hand stilled on a wrench, the cool steel grounding him against the surge of old grief. Sarah's wreck, a slick road, sudden spin, the call that shattered his world. No charges filed, just condolences and a hasty repair crew. "They covered it," he said, voice rough as sandpaper. "And now they're circling back." Rook's eyes met his, a packed ceiling in the fluorescent glow. "Not this time. We ride at dawn, full convoy to the county seat. Present the full package. Your ledger, docs, affidavits from every rider you've touched. Harlan folds, or the state does the folding for him, but tonight we watch, no surprises." The hours stretched. The fire dying to embers as sentries took shifts, engines occasionally revving like watchful growls. Ethan worked alongside them, tuning a loose chain here, checking fluids there. The familiar rhythm, a balm against the uncertainty. The scent of gasoline mingled with the night's cool earthiness, a sensory anchor. In the quiet lulls, Rook shared a flask again, the Scotch warming paths of resolve. "Family chosen, Ethan. You gave us roads when they buckled. We give you this one, clear, unbroken." Dawn's first light crept in, pale fingers brushing the horizon when the trouble stirred. A low hum, not bikes but tires on asphalt. Multiple vehicles, headlights cutting the pre-dawn gloom like knives. Ethan bolted upright from his vigil by the door, heart pounding. 3 unmarked vans, black as midnight, rolled into the lot unannounced, doors sliding open to spill out figures in dark jackets, private security, Klein's muscle, faces masked against the chill. No badges, but the intent was clear. Intimidation, a last grasp before the light exposed them. "Stay back!" Ethan shouted, grabbing a tire iron from the bench, the metal cold in his grip. Lila stirred inside, a soft cry piercing the air. The bikers surged to life, engines roaring in unison, a thunderous barrier forming between the vans and the shop. Rook stood at the forefront, arms crossed, his presence a wall of unyielding leather. "Wrong road, boys," he bellowed. "Turn around, dawn's breaking on your secrets." The lead figure from the vans hesitated, scanning the convoy's numbers, now 60 strong, drawn by overnight calls rippling through the network. Nora revved her Harley, the sound a warning snarl, while Lucas flanked her, phone raised, recording every shadow. No charges, no clashes, just the weight of witnesses, the unspoken vow of the road. The intruders exchanged glances, the air electric with standoff tension, the scent of fear sweat mixing with exhaust. One van's driver barked orders, and they retreated, tires screeching as they fled into the rising sun. But not before a parting shot, a tossed envelope skidding across the gravel toward Ethan. He picked it up warily, the paper crisp and official. A forged eviction notice, dated retroactively, Harlan's seal stamped crookedly. A bluff, crumbling under the light. As the first rays gilded the bikes, Rook clapped Ethan's shoulder. "That's the break." They blinked. "Now we ride, for the shop, for Lila, for every promise kept." The convoy assembled. A symphony of chrome awakening, Lila watching from the doorway with wide-eyed awe. Ethan mounted a spare bike behind Nora, the engine's vibration thrumming through him like renewed purpose. The road ahead stretched infinite, but no longer alone, forged in loyalty's unbreaking chain, redemption's roar carrying them forward. Yet in the envelope's folds, a scribbled note chilled the warmth. "This ends tonight. Choose your side." The corruption's roots ran deeper, Harlan's desperation a spark that could ignite more than vans. Honor demanded the final stand, and as the pack thundered out, Ethan felt the pull, sacrifice's quiet call, echoing Sarah's vow in the wind-whipped dawn. The engines thundered to life as one, a seismic wave of chrome and fury that shook the dust from Eldridge Auto Repair's weathered sign, propelling the convoy forward into the dawn's embrace. Ethan Hale gripped the handlebars of the spare Harley Nora had loaned him, the vibration coursing through his arms like a second heartbeat, raw and unyielding. Lila waved from the shop's doorway, her small figure framed by the rising sun's golden halo. A sketch of chrome angels clutched in her fist. "Be safe, Dad!" she called, her voice cutting through the roar like a clear bell. Ethan nodded, the wind already whipping his face. Carrying the sharp tang of exhaust and the earthy promise of open road. Behind him, the pack stretched out, 60 strong now, riders from distant chapters of the blacktop, drawn by the ripple of Rook's call. Harleys, Indians, a few custom beasts, their tailpipes glowing red-hot as they surged onto Route 17. Rook led the charge, his broad silhouette cutting the air like a blade. The Iron Viper's patch, a coiled serpent under crossed wrenches, gleaming on his back. Nora rode flank, her braids streaming like a banner, while Lucas brought up the rear, eyes scanning for shadows in the rear view. The desert blurred past in a haze of sage and sun-baked earth, the asphalt humming beneath tires that had carried these souls through storms unspoken. Ethan felt the weight of the envelope in his vest pocket, that scribbled threat, "This ends tonight. Choose your side," a serpent's hiss amid the thunder. But choice had already been made, forged in the quiet acts of free repairs, in oaths whispered over welding torches. Sarah's ring bounced against his chest with each bump, a talisman of vows renewed. The miles melted under the relentless pace, the sun climbing to midday's blaze, turning the horizon into a shimmering mirage. Whispers of the corruption's depth filtered through helmet comms. Doc Whitaker's voice crackling over the line, detailing the web. Reno councilman laundering developer cash through Harlan's office, fake evictions like Ethan's the tip of a poisoned spear. They pushed out families after that wreck years back, Doc said, his tone laced with old regret. Sloppy roads, buried reports, your wife's site was ground zero. Ethan's jaw clenched, the wind stinging his eyes, blurring the pain of memory with desert grit. No graphic scars recalled, just the echo of loss that had driven him to this code. Fix what breaks, stand for the fallen. As the county seat loomed, a cluster of squat buildings huddled against the foothills, the courthouse's dome glinting like fool's gold. The convoy slowed, engines downshifting to a purposeful growl. They rolled in formation, not as invaders, but as a tide of testimony, parking in neat rows before the steps. Bystanders paused, coffee cups forgotten, murmuring at the sea of leather and steel. Sheriff Harlan's cruiser sat curbside, engine off, but his deputies milled uneasily, hands twitching near radios. Klein hovered by the entrance, suit crisp now, but eyes darting like cornered prey, flanked by suited councilmen whose faces paled at the sight. Rook killed his bike first, the silence sudden and heavy, boots echoing as the riders dismounted in unison. Ethan followed, legs steady despite the ride's ache, the scent of hot rubber and sage grounding him. The folder of proof, ledgers, affidavits, docs unearthed docs, passed from hand to hand like a sacred relic, each rider adding their mark. A signature from Sparks, recovered from his ordeal, Nora's testimony on the widow's farm, Lucas's war-forged oath. "This ain't about force," Rook announced, voice booming across the square, drawing a crowd of locals, mechanics, farmers, travelers Ethan had touched over years. "It's about keeping promises. Ethan Hale fixed our rides when the world left us stranded. No charge, no strings. Now we fix his, against a system that's forgotten honor." Harlan emerged from the courthouse, mustache bristling, but the bluster from yesterday had frayed. "Disperse this! Assembly!" he barked, but his gaze flicked to the growing throng, phones raised, capturing every word. Klein shifted, whispering urgently to a councilman, but the air crackled with the weight of unbreaking loyalty. Ethan stepped forward, the envelope in hand, unfolding the forged notice for all to see. "This your work, Sheriff?" Retroactive lies to bury a honest shop. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, heads nodding, tales of similar squeezes surfacing like buried tires. Doc Whitaker took the steps, his clerk's vest rumpled, but resolve ironclad. "State oversight's en route," he declared, holding up a sealed communique. "These docs trace every payoff, every rushed permit, the Eldridge Progress Fund, a front for Reno greed, and that accident on Route 17. Covered tracks, no justice." The councilman paled further, one slinking back inside as flashbulbs popped from local press, drawn by the convoy's rumble. Harlan's hand hovered near his badge, but the circle of riders, silent sentinels, arms crossed, held him fast. No clashes, no raised fists, just the poetic weight of truth, heavy as a full tank. Klein cracked first, voice pitching high. "This is harassment. We'll sue—" But Rook cut him off with a raised hand, calm as desert stone. "Sue the mirror, friend. We've got witnesses, dozens. Ethan's ledger shows a community, not collateral. You pushed folks out after wrecks and floods, turned blind eyes to the broken. We're the eyes now." The sheriff deflated, radioing his deputies to stand down, the forged envelope crumbling in his fist. As state vehicles crested the square, sleek sedans with official plates, the web unraveled. Confessions spilled in hushed interviews. Harlan's resignation scrawled by noon. Klein's group scattering like dust in a gust. By afternoon, the courthouse steps became a vigil of vindication. Ethan stood with Rook, the sun warming his back. Lila arriving by bus with a neighbor's help, her eyes lighting at the chrome sea. She hugged him tight, whispering, "The angels won, Dad." The shop was safe. Foreclosure lifted, developers retreating under scrutiny's glare. No bodies tallied, no wounds detailed, just the quiet triumph of integrity prevailing, corruption's shadows fleeing the light. As the convoy prepared to disperse, engines stirring like a farewell symphony, Rook clasped Ethan's forearm. "Favor squared, brother, but roads like ours, they loop back. You ever need us?" Ethan nodded, throat tight, the ring around his neck a bridge to Sarah's memory. Promises kept, family chosen in the raw. Lila climbed onto a bike for a victory lap around the square, laughter mingling with exhaust. The desert wind, carrying scents of sage and second chances. The pack thundered out in waves, silhouettes merging with the horizon, leaving Ethan with a shop reborn and a legacy etched in loyalty's fire. Redemption wasn't a single ride. It was the endless blacktop, honored by those who stood when called. In the quiet after, Ethan locked the gate, Lila's hand in his. The stars emerging like witnesses to oaths unbroken. The road stretched on, but now it felt like home. Thank you for riding along on this tale of unbreakable promises and chosen kin. If stories like Ethan's, of quiet honor against the storm, touch your soul, please subscribe and turn on notifications. We'll keep the engines running with more confessions from the road.